Emma never believed that love was about expensive gifts, beautiful promises, or perfect moments. To her, love meant standing beside someone when life became difficult, telling the truth even when it hurt, and choosing the same person every single day. That was exactly how she loved Daniel from the first day they met until the very last moment of her life. They met in a small bookstore on a rainy afternoon. Daniel was searching for a novel while Emma was sitting in a quiet corner reading. A simple conversation about books turned into coffee, coffee turned into long evening walks. And before they realized it, they had become the most important people in each other's lives. Emma's love was different from anything Daniel had ever experienced. She never pretended to be someone she wasn't. She celebrated his victories without jealousy and stayed beside him through every failure without complaint. When Daniel lost his first job, everyone else advised Emma to leave him and find someone more successful. She simply smiled and said, "A person's value isn't measured by their salary, it's measured by their heart." Those words stayed with Daniel forever. Years passed and life became more complicated. Bills increased, dreams were delayed, and disappointment often replaced hope. Daniel slowly changed under the pressure of life. He became impatient, frustrated, and emotionally distant. He stopped noticing the little things Emma did for him every day. The handwritten notes in his lunch bag, the late-night coffee she made while he worked, the prayers she whispered for him every night. He hardly noticed any of it anymore. Still, Emma never stopped loving him. She believed that difficult times revealed the true meaning of love. Anyone could stay during happiness, but only genuine love remained during storms. One evening, Daniel came home exhausted and angry. Without thinking, he blamed Emma for every frustration in his life. He accused her of not understanding him, of holding him back, and of expecting too much from him. Every word he spoke cut deeper than the last. Emma stood quietly, tears filling her eyes, yet she never argued. When he finally finished speaking, she gently said, "I know you're hurting, that's why I'm not angry." Daniel walked away without another word. That night, Emma cried alone, but the next morning, she still prepared his breakfast with the same care as always. Months later, Daniel started spending more time at work. New colleagues, business dinners, and endless meetings slowly replaced the evenings they once shared together. Emma sensed the distance growing between them, but she trusted him completely. One afternoon, a friend warned Emma that Daniel had been seen with another woman several times. Instead of believing rumors, Emma chose to ask Daniel directly. He denied everything. Emma looked into his eyes and simply replied, "I trust your words because I love you. Please never make me regret trusting you." For the first time, Daniel felt ashamed. The truth was that he had become emotionally attached to someone else. Nothing serious had happened, but he enjoyed the attention and excitement, instead of appreciating the woman who had stood beside him through every hardship. He had become distracted by someone who knew nothing about his struggles. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Emma's trust felt heavier than any accusation could have. The next morning, he ended every unnecessary connection with the other woman. He realized that loyalty wasn't about avoiding temptation. It was about protecting the person who trusted you the most. For a while, everything improved. They laughed again. They traveled together. They dreamed about buying a small house near the countryside. Life finally seemed peaceful. Then one ordinary morning, everything changed. Emma collapsed while preparing breakfast. The hospital tests revealed something no one expected. She had an aggressive illness that had already reached an advanced stage. Daniel felt as though the world had stopped. He refused to believe the diagnosis. He visited specialists, searched for new treatments, and spent every saving they had. He prayed every night for a miracle. Emma remained surprisingly calm. She smiled through every hospital visit. She comforted Daniel even when she was the one in pain. One evening, while sitting beside the hospital window, Daniel broke down. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for every moment. I failed to appreciate you." Emma gently held his trembling hand. "You don't have to apologize," she said softly. "Love isn't about counting mistakes, it's about forgiving them." Daniel cried harder. He realized she had spent years healing wounds that he himself had created. As her condition worsened, simple tasks became impossible. She grew weaker every week. Yet whenever nurses entered the room, they always found her smiling. She constantly asked whether Daniel had eaten. She reminded him to get enough sleep. Even while fighting for her own life, she continued caring more about him than herself. One rainy afternoon, Daniel found an old wooden box hidden inside their closet. Inside were hundreds of tiny memories. Movie tickets, restaurant receipts, birthday cards, letters she had written but never given him. One letter caught his attention. It read, "If you are reading this, perhaps life has already taken me away. I don't want you to remember me because I was sick. Remember me because I loved you. Honestly, I never loved you for your success, your money, or your strength. I loved you because your heart was worth believing in even when you couldn't. Believe in yourself. If one day you feel lonely, don't blame yourself forever. Live a good life. Smile again, help others. That will be enough to make me happy wherever I am." Daniel couldn't stop crying. He finally understood that Emma's greatest gift had never been her kindness. It had been her truth. She had loved him without pretending, without conditions, without expecting anything in return. The final weeks arrived quietly. Doctors prepared Daniel for the inevitable. Emma's strength faded each day. One evening she asked to leave the hospital room for a few minutes. The nurses carefully wheeled her outside to watch the sunset. She leaned against Daniel's shoulder as the sky turned orange. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Daniel held her hand tightly. "I'm not ready to lose you." Emma smiled weakly. "You were never supposed to keep me forever." He looked at her with tears streaming down his face. "I'll love you forever," she answered softly. "Then don't waste forever being sad." As darkness covered the sky, she closed her eyes for a moment. She never opened them again. Daniel remained beside her, holding her hand long after the doctors quietly confirmed what he already knew. The woman who had loved him with complete honesty until her last breath was gone. The funeral was filled with people whose lives Emma had touched through simple acts of kindness. Neighbors spoke about how she secretly helped struggling families. Children remembered the book she donated every year. An elderly woman revealed that Emma had paid for her medicine several times without ever telling anyone. Daniel discovered that even after her death, Emma was still teaching him who she truly was. Months became years. Daniel eventually sold the house and created a small community library in Emma's name. Every child who entered received a free book with a handwritten message inside. Always choose truth over comfort, kindness over pride, and love over fear. Visitors often asked Daniel why he had dedicated his life to the library. He always smiled and answered the same way. "Because someone once loved me with complete honesty until her very last moment, and the least I can do is make sure her love never disappears from this world." Standing quietly beside Emma's memorial one spring afternoon, Daniel looked at the flowers blooming around her resting place. The wind carried memories instead of sorrow. For the first time since losing her, he smiled without tears. He finally understood that real love does not end when a heartbeat stops. True love lives inside. Every lesson, every sacrifice, every honest word, and every act of kindness left behind. Emma had loved him with truth and reality until her final breath, and although she was no longer beside him, her love continued to guide every step he took for the rest of his life.